Rolling Conversations podcast with James and Sarah. We just went to ADCC, the Orlando Open this weekend, and we wanted to give our thoughts, a little bit of feedback, and kind of what we saw. ADCC, the Orlando Open this weekend, and we wanted to give our thoughts, a little bit of feedback, and kind of what we saw from this weekend. Didn't see from this weekend. Yeah, didn't see a lot of takedowns, but it was a massive turnout for the event. It was one of their largest events, over 1,400 people. They ended up having to cap the event, and then they had to get 4 extra mats rolled out for overflow just to try and keep up and keep the tournament rolling.
And that didn't work.
That didn't work. Like most grappling tournaments we've been to, we've even put on and hosted our own grappling tournaments,
which also didn't run on time. So
no, we're not being hypocrites.
We weren't perfect, and we aren't hypocrites, right?
But it's common knowledge. Grappling tournaments run late. There's delays and everything. But you would think with that large of an organization and that much money behind it and the popularity in the sport, like it would have been a little bit smoother. One of our friends that was competing, his match was originally slated for 1:30, and he ended up not going till
after 4:30.
After 4:30, and that just pushed everybody consistently back. The advanced divisions didn't even start until after 9 o'clock, right?
Yeah, I think there was some that started around 8:30 and then some at 9 o'clock. But I know, like the main, like brackets, like the adult brackets, the open brackets or whatever, they didn't finish until after midnight.
Wow, it's crazy. And I know.
Which, if you're gonna run overtime, just get 2 days. 2 days.
And that's the thing. It was at the Orlando Convention Center, a giant exhibit hall. They were mixed in with the Olympia competition, which in itself is more than just bodybuilding. They had grid league games, CrossFit,
powerlifting, bare knuckle fighting,
sumo. They even had like the one-handed arm lifting thing. So a bunch of
America's Strongest Woman.
Yep. $25,000.
She did. She won $25,000. That was awesome.
But you think with all that going on and all that space, and they knew ahead of time that they had to cap it, they had to cut off registration, that they either would have figured a way to get more mats or turned it into a 2-day event, which I think should have done. But
because they had little kids, you know what I mean, and then they had like girls and boys divisions, then they had like team divisions, and then they had beginner, intermediate, and advanced for adults, and then they had masters brackets, and then they had absolute, except I don't think absolute brackets even happened.
No.
So
and they added a new masters age bracket for 45 and up.
But when you have that many, I mean, 1,400 competitors in and of itself is at least, if everybody only had one match, it's 700 matches. Everybody had 2 matches.
Yeah, it's double elimination.
That's a double elimination. That's 1,400 matches.
Yeah,
and you have to account for time. Like, because if everything went to time, holy shit.
Yeah. And now with the popularity of the sport and people are actually making money doing jiu-jitsu and competing, whether it's from sponsors, endorsements, social media, whatever, they're trying to make a living.
YouTube channels.
They're trying to make a living doing grappling, so they're traveling. We saw people from all over the country. I saw one guy from China, one guy from Guam.
There was a girl from Venezuela.
Yes, like all over the country. Almost every team you can think of was represented. And it was really sad that the absolute didn't get to go, because those are the guys that are wanting to be the professional. They're at the highest level,
or they're just really stupid.
Yeah, but they didn't get to go. It's Monday now that we're recording this, and the only thing I've seen posted was Mo Hassim and ADCC shared a thing going into their SoCal event that they're adding 5 more rings, and that they're going to start traveling their more experienced refs and judges to kind of negate some of these issues. But I didn't see if I can imagine SoCal is going to be even more packed than Florida, and they're going to have they just need to turn it into a 2-day event with the popularity of it.
If they're going to have, I think if they're going to have kids and teens as well, then it needs to be that way.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know, the majority of the participants in a grappling tournament, there's the kids, and then there's the men's blue belt division.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 largest divisions in grappling tournaments.
Yeah.
And I just, with as many like opportunities to compete, because if you were going to be in the adult division and you wanted to do your masters division and you wanted to do the absolute, like, it's a lot of matches and a lot of people and a lot of time, and I just don't think it was properly accounted for.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it wasn't expected either, and we had to leave in the middle. Remember, we had to go outside.
Yeah, we had to exit so they could
close off the expo, and then we had to come back in. So that was another almost 30-40 minutes that was wasted.
Yeah, and I know the East Coast Trials in New Jersey, they had 1,198 competitors. And I know competitors started dropping out as the matches got pushed back further and further. People were just dropping out, not showing up. And then it caused another delay because now you're calling a name that they got upset and left because they didn't want to wait till 9-10 o'clock to grapple, or 11 o'clock. The last posted time we saw for the absolute, the first match to start at absolute, was 11:15, and then there was another pushback.
PM,
11:15 p.m. There was another time delay pushback, and that's when you noticed that the absolute was.
well, because I went to look to see, because we had already gotten home by that point.
Yeah.
And so I went to look and see to, like, if any of the girls that I was waiting to watch were gonna be in the absolute, and I couldn't find the absolute bracket anywhere on SmoothCom. So I just assumed that with everything running so far behind, that they just didn't do it.
Yeah.
So.
But we did get to see a lot of matches, a lot of good matches, a lot of there was a couple, you know, recognizable names. We're not going to go through them all that were there. It was a good turnout. It is kind of funny with the state of jiu-jitsu right now, seeing some of the techniques trying to be used. ADCC is known for their rule set. I actually love their rule set, the way they structure their tournaments. It is a little bit more grappling oriented instead of like IBJJF that's a little more, you know, jiu-jitsu art oriented.
Well, I think IBJJF is safety first, where ADCC is safety second.
Yeah, and but I do like that if you go off they don't stop you. They let you go. You know, I do like that. I do like their rule sets for intermediates. Like, only thing that wasn't allowed for intermediates was slams. You know, and
but you could still do it if you were in a submission, right?
No, you couldn't slam. Intermediate.
That's only for advanced?
I think. Intermediate, you couldn't slam. But the bad part is because of the B teams, the New Waves, the Craig Jones, some of the other guys that are popularizing the sport, which is awesome. They're bringing a lot of people to it. Gyms are making money. They're filling up. Tournaments are filling up. It's really great. But the one thing that I noticed is fundamentally, jiu-jitsu, I didn't see a lot of good fundamental jiu-jitsu there. I saw a lot of guys trying to build their content versus trying to win a tournament or be good at jiu-jitsu, because the one thing there was 2 things I noticed technically sound, and I'm going to speak from like beginner to intermediate, because advanced I didn't quite see it as much, but intermediate specifically, these are guys that have been training, you know, blues and purples, who've been training a while, that you would think would be a a little more technically sound, and this is a broad statement that I'm not slamming anybody that happens to watch this or whatever. And if you take offense to it, then I probably am talking about you, so just deal with it. Learn jiu-jitsu or come find me. But I saw a lot of people trying to tie up and wrestle that didn't know how to wrestle. And I saw a lot of technically poor takedown attempts.
You saw takedown attempts?
I did see
I
some.
saw slap, bump, sit down.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of guys tie up and get stuck there because they just stayed there too long in that neutral horse collar tie. Like, that's not a good place to hang out. They didn't know how to take down. And then the one thing that just killed me, I saw some guys that they would, just like you said, it'd slap bump, they'd go right to their butts and they'd start attacking the legs, which great entry for open guard and no-gi. If someone's standing up and the closest thing they give you is the leg, go for the leg, attack it. That's what you should be doing, or you should be learning how to wrestle up. But if you're on your butt and your feet are there, attack it. Like, that's fine. But
maybe know how to do it.
But maybe know how to do it and know how to recover. The main thing, and the basis of my statement is, one, the entry wasn't bad. The thought process, if somebody's standing up and their legs are there and you can get a hold of them, attack the legs. If they're smart, they shouldn't be engaging in your hand fighting. But the thing that made me realize that they're not very good fundamentally at jiu-jitsu is that when they go for the leg and it would fail, they would get smashed and dominated, and they didn't know how to recover from that. Mm-hmm. And then the person doing the smashing and dominating couldn't finish. And it was very disappointing to see a lot of back takes that didn't get finished because they couldn't finish.
Yeah.
And it was surprising that normally the intermediates are young guys that are aggressive that will get after it.
They're going to war.
And it was kind of like, it was split down the middle. It was very like lazy, poor technique or hyper aggression trying to make a highlight video. And then, guys, if you're an intermediate grappler, blue, purple belt, if you win and you have this finished dance that you do.
The samurai cut guy, he was like,
yeah.
Oof. I'm like, you didn't even finish him.
You couldn't
literally
finish.
won on points. Yeah. You don't get
so if you're doing shit like that and you're a beginner or intermediate, everybody knows you're doing it for content. Like, you're not gonna do that shit in a pro level match. You're not gonna do it in advance.
Well, no, because by the time they promote,
yeah,
they're going to be like, wow, I was so douchey at blue belt.
Yeah, it was bad. I saw quite a few of those little dances that were like, and some walk-offs. I saw someone who was on top who was up on points, and instead of trying to go for the match and finish the match, they were in the top dominant position, but they didn't know how to finish, so they looked up at the clock, and I saw this guy stood up, and rather than re-engaging or going for the finish, he just stood up and started walking off and put his hands up. And I'm like, the match isn't over, and there was so much time left that the guy on bottom stood up and had enough time to try and grab him around the, like, that could, if he'd have recognized what was going on and realized the time wasn't over and could have got that takedown a little bit quicker, he would have lost that match. And it's dumb shit like that I'm talking about. Like, be aggressive, get after it, try shit. Like, when you're in the beginner and the intermediate, you should be learning how to compete. So try shit, but don't be a douchebag. Like, I understand, like, everybody, we're doing this for content. We're doing this to get views. We're doing this for watches. Yeah. Like, we get it. We understand it. But, you know.
He looked like an idiot, though.
I guarantee you, like, he's the guy, like, and when he gets a win in the gym, he's the gym champ. That's like.
Oh, for sure. He definitely seemed like he was, for sure.
But yeah, that's our take. It was very disappointing. A great event, a large event, and I'm really sad. I feel bad for a lot of the competitors. it wasn't most
Well, I
grappling.
feel even bad just for our friends because it was like we had been there for so long, and you
Yeah.
want to stay for like everyone that you know that you can watch them go, but at a certain point you're like, shit, man, I want to go home.
Yeah.
I'm hungry. I haven't eaten yet.
But I feel bad for the competitors. Most grappling tournaments don't take into consideration spectators, so I get that. I understand that. But a lot of tournaments don't charge admission for spectators, that people can come and go,
Yeah.
whatever. It's they make their money off the competitors. This particular event charged a lot. I think for the day it was $45 for a spectator, and there was nothing to sit on. There was one bleacher, and they had a couple of coaches' chairs, and they had plenty of room. The convention center, like when you rent that hall, like from us doing tournaments, they'll usually, a big place like that, they'll throw that stuff in. And if you're gonna have an issue squeezing in all the matches, at least try and make it comfortable for people.
Oh yeah, because the competitors were sitting around the wall. I mean, we would normally do that anyway. Like
Yeah.
you sit off by yourself on the wall or whatever. But there was no comfort for anyone there.
Yeah, and
You can't bring your own chair.
Yeah, well, there was no warm-up mats that we saw, but I'm thinking the mats that they added 4 more rings.
I wonder if those were.
I think those were the warm-up mats, because they looked like they were older used mats that they had just took some paint, like painter's tape or something, and made squares on them, and then they turned those into 4 additional rings to try and help get through. But yeah, it was not. It was a great opportunity for a great event, specifically here in Florida, and I just think it could have.
Well, hopefully the competitors got stuff out of it.
Yeah.
Because I know that that's the whole reason that they're doing it, is to get people more exposure to ADCC rule sets, because it is so different from IBJJF and our local, like the Nagas and
Yeah.
Copas and stuff like that. It is different, so it was ran like a grappling tournament, and I think that we all just held it to a higher standard because it was ADCC. So we expected more out of it.
Yeah. And I know you compete where you can compete. Some tournaments have good reputations, some don't. And if you want to compete, compete. If you don't. It is what it is. But, that was just our take on right now what everybody is calling the Olympics of our sport. Like it's created so much business popularity and opportunity for jiu-jitsu, and I don't know, I feel let down a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. But at the same time, I mean, it's freaking awesome to see the popularity of jiu-jitsu has, multiplied exponentially since we started jiu-jitsu, since you started jiu-jitsu 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And since I did, I never had female training partners or anything in the beginning, not really. And so it's awesome now. But
Yeah. Well,
that was our opinion.
if we're wrong,
Anybody cares?
yeah, if we're wrong, or you see something that we missed, or
Or you just have an opinion you want to add.
put it down in the comments. Go to our page, like, subscribe, follow, hit the little notification bell.